Hello and welcome to the Transcend and Succeed show. I'm your guest host, Megan North. Firstly, I would like to thank our wonderful sponsors of the show, Quantum Awakening, Voyage of Transcendence, myself, and our lovely guest who paid to be featured on the show today. Now, talking about my lovely guest, I am joined today by a beautiful friend of mine who I met when I was enrolled in a 12-month course for wellness coaching. She and I ended up being in quite a few classes together and we were instantly connected by friendship. So Dr. Melissa Raymond, a determined mother whose child battled eczema, allergies and asthma, combines her personal journey with professional expertise to guide others beyond traditional approaches to these conditions. Armed with a PhD in health research and 2 decades as a physiotherapist, she now works as a certified health coach, helping both adults and parents reclaim control of their children's health. Her methodology addresses various approaches, including epigenetics and energy work. Dr. Melissa focuses on reducing symptoms at the root cause without extreme diets, endless supplements, or overwhelming protocols. Despite juggling multiple responsibilities, including teaching at 2 universities, she tailors her approach to each client's needs. Dr. Melissa loves celebrating in her clients' successes and enjoys competitive card games with her children, pottering in her garden, and being fireside with the latest binge-worthy book. Welcome to the show, Melissa. I've been really excited to have you as a guest on the show.
Thank you, Megan. It's just nice to finally make it here. Thanks for having me today.
You're very welcome. So what sort of binge-worthy books do you usually read? Like what attracts you to certain books?
Because I have had such a sciencey career, I've really enjoyed, or not enjoyed, I'm used to reading lots of non-fiction articles and that sort of thing. So I therefore like to go the flip side and go the really trashy romance novels, whatever's the latest release.
Yeah.
And whatever's recommended by our good Facebook friends. The Facebook community is great for suggestions.
And are you one of those people that, like, do you pick up a book and instantly, if you're connected with it, you've just got to finish it straight away?
Yes. And similarly, I've realised that life is too short, and if I can't get past the first 2 pages, it's out. So it doesn't get another chance, even if I'm told it's a good book.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. So
yeah.
There's plenty of trashy novels out there for me to make my way through.
Yeah, I agree. I actually get into a couple of chapters and then I read the last chapter and then decide if I want to read the rest of it.
Ooh, spoiler alert.
Yeah, because I kind of get into it and I'm like, oh, this is really good. And then I get about halfway through and I'm like, oh, I'm actually bored now. Do I actually want to finish it? So I go to the end and then it usually wraps it up for me. So I'm fine.
Oh, I get that. The shortcut.
Yeah. So we're talking about eczema and allergies and all of those sort of things, particularly in kids. And so how did you end up working with adults and kids with eczema, allergies and asthma? Where did all of this work come from? What was the catalyst of this work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I was in the middle. I was how many years in? 10 years into my physio career, or 8 years into my physio career, and started a PhD, as you do. Was never part of the plan. Postgrad was never part of my plan until I actually could see the relevance of it making a difference to my patients.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was like, oh, it's all about the patients. Okay, I can do some research and some further study. And then I had my first son mid-PhD, two boys, and he developed really severe eczema at the age of 4 months.
Oh, 4 months.
4 months old, yeah.
Right.
And then we went, down the typical route, GP, steroids. Nothing was really working. We put the steroids on. The eczema would pop up in other places. He had hives every day, like these unexplainable hives. And then we found out through allergy testing that he also allergies. And so I wanted to know why, because that's my science brain. And I asked all the doctors we went to, like, why does my son have eczema? Why does he have allergies? I don't have allergies or eczema. My husband doesn't. Has to be a reason. And you would think, I would think, as doctors, as a health profession, they would have the reasons why, because it's a very science-based approach. And they said, oh, it's very common at this age. Kids just get eczema at 2 months and 4 months and 6 months. It's just what happens. And I just thought that was not a good enough response for me, because like his skin was weeping. It was bleeding. He was itching till he was bleeding. He was up. He just didn't sleep at all because he was so itchy, and it was really horrible to see. But I thought that it had to be a symptom of something. Like, it can't be for no reason. And so, because I was doing my PhD, I had access to the library, the medical library, so I ended up spending a lot of time researching eczema and origins of eczema to try and help my son, because that typical approach of just putting steroids on was really just a Band-Aid approach, and I could see that that was kind of his lifetime ahead of him, like a lifetime of steroids. And the doctor told us a year of antibiotics, lifetime of steroids, bleach baths, so Toilet King in the bath, hospital stays, and don't read the package inserts of the medication I'm going to give you, because the link to some of those health conditions like cancer, that's not really relevant to your child. So in my mind, lots of red flags, not really dealing with the root cause, which we didn't know, and it just took me down a completely different path. I'm very grateful, even though it was such a struggle at the time, and I really had ragey feelings about that doctor who told us that that's what my son's life was going to be. It put us in a different path. So I actually am grateful for that input, and we went down path B.
And from, like, it just feels like that people don't, I mean, you had the courage to go, that just doesn't seem right. I'm going to ask more questions. And not necessarily because you were doing your PhD. I knowing you, I actually think even if you weren't, you probably would have questioned it anyway.
Yes.
You had the courage to do that. But do you think that there's the energy around medicine and practitioners is that most people are just so trusting of what these doctors say that they just accept it and then they just move on? Like, and then on the other side, why are doctors so non-exploratory in a sense? Like, you know, that doctor sitting there saying that, how come that doctor hasn't thought, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't really seem right, I'm going to look. Do you understand where I'm sort of coming from? It just seems really odd to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seemed really odd to me too, because don't we want to know why things happen so that we can deal with the why and not just the symptoms, which I'll come back to. But I think that a lot of people in the same position as me are so tired because their child isn't sleeping. You can't think straight, particularly in the early days of having a newborn, and then you've got this thrown on top. And for many of the clients that I work with, they're coming to me with 5-week-old babies with eczema. So you're also in that days of nursing multiple times a night. Your sleep is so disrupted. No one ever tells you. It's like a ton of bricks. And also where we've had so many decades of trust in the system that you would go to a doctor and they would give you the best options. And having worked in the hospital medical system for 20 years, I can absolutely see that. So there's absolutely a time and a place for steroids and antibiotics and surgery that we need. But there are also some other, you know, chronic health diseases are continuing to explode, and really coming back to the reasons why this is happening, as opposed to popping a pill, is probably on the minds of a lot more people these days than it was back then.
Yeah, I think so. And I also think too that, and look, like I'm not having a dig at like modern medicine or anything like that. It's not where I'm coming. I think it's probably just because the way that I think as well. If something happens to me and I get sick, I'm first thinking, okay, well, what's going on with me energetically? Have I is there something that is unbalanced? Are my chakras out? I go to the real woo-woo side of it. But then there is sometimes that I need to go to the doctor about something. I had influenza A last month, severely unwell, and I needed antivirals. Now, I just accepted the fact that I thought I was just going to take anything because I was so sick. So there is a time and a place. But I think there's also a time where you just get to a point where you just think, you know what? I've got the energy now, like probably what a lot of parents do as well. And you obviously had that little spike of energy in yourself at that time to be curious. But I think you just get to the point where you just think, actually, it's my time to actually explore something different now.
Yes, absolutely. I could see. So it did take me quite a long time to figure out. So, spoiler alert here, final chapter of Ben's allergies and eczema story. We completely cleared his eczema before he hit the age of 2. He was first diagnosed at 4 months though. So I spent a lot of time on really restricted elimination diets where I was down to 5 foods. I lost 30 kilos from the time Ben was born until I was at my lowest. Because I was breastfeeding, so I wanted to cut out everything that might be causing him an issue, because I could physically see that when I was breastfeeding him, he would then come out in hives. Like within a few minutes, you could see the hives just wash through his body. So I knew there was something there. But I'm also very stubborn and I like to try and figure things out for myself. So there was a bit of me dabbling in elimination diets for way too long, admittedly. There was me trying to find the right practitioner who would help support us. And we met so many wonderful people along the way. And one thing that kept on coming up was gut health. And I was like, that sounds too hard. But this was 14 years ago. So you couldn't buy kombucha at Woolies. Nobody knew about bone broth. Not that I recommend bone broth as a first instance, but it was a completely different time back then. You had to really go out of your way to find a sauerkraut or fermented foods. And so there was the idea of doing work on gut healing was really onerous to the person doing the cooking, which was me.
Yeah.
And I really don't like cooking at all. But what I could see was if we kept on going down this path of elimination diets, that my son would eventually have to then only eat chicken, rice, broccoli, peas and carrots, that he wasn't ever going to be able to have a pizza as a teenager.
Yeah.
He wasn't ever going to be able to just go on a holiday without taking a bag full of moisturizers with him. And so I thought if we kept doing the same thing and not getting results, I had to change something.
Yeah.
And my husband, Rob, was really, really supportive. I said, look, let's try plan B. And if plan B doesn't work, we'll go back to the steroids. But we know that the steroids haven't worked because we're in this position where Ben's just completely miserable. We'll try plan B for a bit. And then if that doesn't work, we'll reassess.
Yeah.
So within 2 months of really starting that gut healing protocol called the GAPS diet, the Gut and Psychology Syndrome diet, it's a very, very intensive diet and it's really hardcore. But Ben's eczema cleared completely.
Wow.
And that was nearly 14 years ago, and he hasn't had it since.
And so was that the diet were you on that diet or was he on that? So you were on that, right. But when he was just having breast milk, obviously it was just you on that diet because...
It was me So the timeline was after 4 months he was diagnosed and with eczema and allergies, and then I faffed around for 10 months.
Right.
Elimination diet for 10 months, which is far too long for any, it's not the purpose of an elimination diet, anyone listening out there. It's just to figure out what the food triggers are and then reintroduce food back in.
Yeah.
But also my logical brain was like, if we take the food out and he gets better, but then we just add it back in, like what's changed in that time? And what was missing was and for a lot of my clients, they take the food out, it gets a bit better, they introduce it back in, and then it gets worse again. Right. So the missing pieces are the nervous system work and the gut health work to then bring the inflammation down, bring down the symptoms, and then the symptoms should clear.
Yeah, okay. Wow, okay. Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot that you went through in those first couple of years with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And my dad was one of the first people to be involved in creating formula overseas, infant formula.
Right.
And that my family obviously loved me very much, but staged a little intervention because I'd lost so much weight. And he was really keen for me to do something differently for my own health, which I completely understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that would have been tough for your family to be watching on the sideline as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because I wasn't going to, unfortunately, listen to their advice. Because also they hadn't lived through the eczema because it was completely new to us.
Yeah. And do you think that you were just so focused, like it went for too long because you were just so focused on trying to find what it is? It was probably almost you're in panic mode of, I've just got to find what this is because I need to help my son.
Absolutely. That was my sole focus. Probably why my PhD took me 8 years to finish because I had a mini PhD in eczema in the middle. But that was my sole purpose. Every day I was researching. Every day I was trying something different. Every day I was searching for answers. And it really took over my life in possibly not the healthiest ways, but it was about fixing my son. That's what I had in my mind.
Yeah. Wow. I suspect for Rob as well, it would have been really difficult for him to be watching that, even though he's saying, I'm going to support you and I'm here for you. There's probably lots of moments where he had to zip his lip because he didn't.
Well, one of the things, and particularly in Chinese medicine, is that when you use something to suppress a symptom, the symptom has to come out somewhere. There's still inflammation in the body. So eczema is a sign that the body is inflamed. So if you suppress the symptom, it's sort of like if you had a fire in your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of turning the gas off at the source and putting the fire out, you just like close the door and you can't see the fire. You can't smell the smoke yet, but at some point the smoke and the fire are going to come out somewhere else, right? So it's that analogy of the inflammation is still there. The body's still saying, help, I need help, but you're just going, shh, shh, shh.
Yeah. We're just going to close the door for the moment and right.
And I totally get that because when you're very stressed and you just want your child to not suffer, or you suffer as an adult, you just want that quick fix.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be the either or. You can do both.
Yeah, that is such an amazing analogy because that's just given me, but because when we talk about things bubbling away in the body, because I'm not a medical scientific person, you know, I've never really seen an organ in real life, or, you know, I've only ever sort of seen pictures drawn and those sort of things. And so for me, I'm a visual. So for me to sort of understand things bubbling away in the body, I don't really get. Whereas you giving me that analogy, I can really picture a fire burning with the gas and the door closed. So it's a very, very good analogy. And I think that, I've had this aha moment with you saying that, because it's just given me a really good insight into that from a holistic body point of view as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, it's in traditional Chinese medicine, if you're suppressing the eczema symptoms, it comes out, often expresses as asthma, because the lungs and the skin are connected.
Right.
And so that's often why you have that allergy march, eczema, allergies and asthma, all connected with the root cause, and they just present in different symptoms.
Right. Wow. Okay. I'm going to pause us there. We're going to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, I know that you've got a offer for the audience, which is wonderful. And then we'll dive deeper into this. I don't want to ask you a question now because I know that will be another 10 minutes. So let's hear from the sponsors and then we'll come back in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Meg.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Dr. Melissa Raymond, and we're talking about eczema, allergies, and asthma, and how that is all connected, and particularly in children as well. So, Melissa, before, did you just have a chuckle when you saw that your testimonial was on the ad as well? I just realised that when I saw that come up, I thought, oh, there you go, everybody. Everybody will know who's given me that wonderful testimonial. So, Melissa, I believe that you've got an audience offer?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a Facebook group for those of you who are on Facebook. We run weekly masterclasses in there. They're all free. And so I delve into a different aspect of eczema, allergies and or asthma each week, answer any questions that come up. And it's really beyond the typical approaches. So while it is natural and it's holistic, it's more than, dietary changes or complicated protocols or even the gut health aspect, which is well more known about now and working with different health practitioners to work on gut health. Mm-hmm. It's the missing piece of the puzzle that I like to share, because the reason why I'm doing this in the first place is because I don't want parents to go through what I went through and have to figure it out themselves. It's just not worth the struggle. It's not worth the struggle in their kids. Mm-hmm. So free Facebook group training in there. Mm-hmm. And also if anybody wants to jump on a 30-minute one-on-one call with me, they're very welcome to as well if you're not so inclined on Facebook.
Great, thank you. And are those weekly training, is that recorded then so people can access them if there's a difference in the time zone?
Yeah, absolutely. So they are available. They're available for a week or two afterwards. I know there's some Facebook changes coming where Facebook Lives will be deleted from the platform after 30 days. So
Right. Okay.
coming soon. So they're up for a week or two.
Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. And the QR code for the audience is there. So thank you very much for that generous offer.
Thanks, Megan.
So what's the usual approach to eczema, and then how does your approach differ?
So the usual approach is that symptom management approach, which we sort of talked about, the fire, the closing the door. So typically for eczema, it's topical steroids. It could be antibiotics, either oral or topical antibiotics.
Mm-hmm.
It can be toilet cleaner in the bath. So bleach baths are very commonly prescribed as well. And the reason behind the antibiotics and the bleach baths, or the theory behind it, is that there's an overgrowth or infection on the skin that's contributing to the eczema.
Right.
So it's still the skin being the cause of the issue rather than internal, eczema being a symptom of internal dysfunction.
Right. Okay. Right.
So those are sort of the approaches. And then wet dressings when things get really bad, which is a combination of a moisturiser and a topical steroid slathered on, and then bandages over the skin. And that can be over a number of days. They can be done in hospital, or they may be done at home.
Right. Okay. And then so how is your approach different to that?
So my approach has changed a lot in the last sort of 12 months. I used to go very much on the food-based dietary gut health approach. But having gone through that process myself, I also realised how stressful that can be when you suggest to a parent, let's try a little bit of an elimination diet, or let's try adding these extra things in for you to cook at home. Mm-hmm. I can sometimes see the face just go, I'm just coping right now. I can't take food out. What am I going to replace it with? And so over the last 12 months, I've really overhauled things because I also realized there was a missing piece to my approach. And so that is the link between gut health and our nervous system.
Right.
Our nervous system is that very, very briefly, the nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, where for eczema, we're stuck in that sympathetic stress survival mode, that fight, flight, freeze mode that you may have heard of before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when we are, that nervous system component has kept us alive for thousands and thousands of years. And it is important because that's the subconscious response to danger. Mm-hmm. We don't want to have to think about, which is a much slower process, think about a response to these days a car, coming quickly towards us. We want our sympathetic nervous system, that subconscious response, to just kick in so we get out of the way.
Yep.
The issue is that when we get stuck in that stress response, which is only really supposed to be a short, sharp respond and then come back out of that mode. When we're stuck in that response, it becomes really inflammatory. And so cortisol levels rise, inflammation in the body rises, but that happens ongoing 24/7 after a traumatic event.
Right.
And so a traumatic event for a baby may be pregnancy or birth. Mm-hmm. It may have been a really stressful time for the baby in the womb, or they may have had a really traumatic birth or a stressful birth for them. Mm-hmm. And so some parents will say, yeah, actually the birth was really stressful. And so that's how babies can be stuck in that sympathetic nervous system response. Whereas I get a lot of parents saying, well, my baby's not, at a 9-to-5 job and they don't have, don't have to cook. That's where those stresses can come from.
Right.
And chronically that's inflammatory, and down the track at some point that chronic inflammation presents as a physical symptom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we're in that physical symptoms. So you might be able to relate to when you feel stressed. You might have the tension in your shoulders. You might get headaches, migraines, or tummy upsets. Those are common physical presentation of stress.
Yep.
And so when we're stuck in that stress response, it switches off the balance of that, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the rest and digest, heal and reproduce mode.
Right. Okay.
So we're either it's sort of like a seesaw, right?
Mm-hmm.
If one's on, then the other one's off.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to be resting and digesting when there's a car coming towards you.
Yes.
So when the car's coming towards you, though, or you're in that stress response, if the car's gone and you're still stressed about it, then your body's digestion is switched off. Because the body's saying, oh, no, I can't digest properly because I'm still stressed. And so that's the link between the gut, the parasympathetic nervous system, and that chronic stress as well. And it's the reason why many people who have worked on gut health for a long time don't see results, because they're not helping the nervous system switch back into the digestion mode.
Right. Okay. And isn't it interesting when you just said then, that I was thinking of this before, but again, you've given me another aha moment of when parents are, or when you were sort of saying when your son was 4 months, and I'm thinking, well, he was either only having formula or breast milk. It's not like he was eating stuff and he was off and you didn't know what he was eating and what was he being inflamed with. But when you then talk about that, the nervous system, like that first piece of it, it really makes sense that if a baby has gone through trauma, that you'd really need to sort of point that out to a mother, because she probably wouldn't take that as a reason why the child would be stressed or traumatized, because you don't really think of that, do you? In the sense of a baby is just a baby, and what has it really experienced in the last few months? Probably nothing, but actually the birth could have a very, very big deal to do with that.
Yes, absolutely. And so when there's, even though it's, babies, many of us don't have memories that go back that time, or conscious memories. Everything's stored in the subconscious.
It is, yeah.
And the subconscious is still stuck in that high stress mode.
Yeah.
And so it is sometimes a bit of a jump for some people to understand that. But when we work on reducing the intensity of emotions around birth, not just, it can be very challenging to do that with a newborn, but we would do it with the mother.
The mother, yeah.
And then the energetics around that just equalize, they become to a place of balance. So we're not changing what happened at birth, but we're reducing, or we're helping her process the sympathetic nervous system and the emotions, so that we can switch that off again. And that's why I start there, because then mums I've worked with dads too, but they have the mental capacity, once they've released that ongoing inflammation and stress that's been going since their child was born, when we release that, they're like, oh, actually, I think I could add something into the diet. There's just a really significant energetic shift.
Yeah.
And it's really great to see,
And it's really interesting because in the healing that I do, we do we send healing to the baby in the womb, or we do that type of work. And I've done that to myself, me going back into the womb and doing some healing. And it's incredible the stuff that comes up from an energetic point of view of what you can heal, even the stuff that, like, I didn't know. I mean, I was in the womb. I wasn't aware of it. But yeah, it's a beautiful gift that actually you can do for your child and for the mother, because there's lots of things that we carry through life from an energetic point of view and a subconscious point of view that can have happened when you were in the womb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even just, thinking back physically, we're an egg in our mother's ovaries when she's a baby, when she's a fetus in our maternal grandmother's womb. So any stress as well, just to add to the picture, any stress or trauma that happens to our grandmother when she's pregnant with our mum, we're present. Well, half of us are present, which is amazing. That's fascinating. But also it's the generational stress or the generational trauma. And lots of studies have shown that too, around the Holocaust and that trauma being passed down.
Yeah. And so when you said like the last 12 months you've shifted, so is that when you discovered the connection between the nervous system and the eczema? Or is that what's shifted in the last 12 months for you?
Yes, it was. I had a few clients whose eczema just wasn't shifting. And also I could see that the stress levels in the parents was extremely high. And I felt, having done the coaching certification with you and just not being able to support them in the way that I wanted to support people, both emotionally, because I know that is such a big component to being a mum when you've got a child who's unwell or with a health condition, that if you can make a difference in the mum, how they feel, their stress levels, then other things start to shift. But if you're really highly stressed, then week to week, it's very hard to make change. And so it was sort of something that it just happened, as things do. Of course, Megan, one thing sort of led to another, and then I became more aware of the link. And it was completely then obvious, of course, that the gut is linked to the brain via the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve has a really big role to play in gut health and the parasympathetic nervous system. It was like, oh, of course. So that's probably about 85% of the work that I do now is there. And then a little bit of gut health work and a little bit of the epigenetic environmental, lifestyle approach as well.
And what is that? What is epigenetics?
Epigenetics is the stuff outside of genes or around the genes. So we're born with the genes we have. We can't do anything about the genes that we have. But we can, through lifestyle, turn our genes on and off.
Oh, okay.
So there's a few people attributed to this quote, but lifestyle, epigenetics, genetics loads the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger.
Right. Okay. Right.
So even if you have, there are genes associated with eczema, but even if you've got them, you may not have eczema. And it is because of the lifestyle, stress, diet, what we eat, health, exercise, chemicals, all of those things.
Right. Okay. Okay, that makes more sense to me now, and particularly with the work that you're doing with the gut as well, because it's I've heard now that a lot of people say that your gut is your second brain, and so if it's healthy, then the rest of you will be healthy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the really interesting thing that I teach my clients is that your gut bacteria, so the different microorganisms in your gut, they're not actually us. They're actually other bacteria that we get from birth and from what we eat and our surrounds and things. But they guide what we eat because their idea is to survive.
Oh, so they're telling us what we like. I really feel like this.
Yes.
Because it's telling us. Oh.
So they are a direct link to the brain. Direct link. And so what I find in my clients is that many for eczema, allergies and asthma will say, my child's a really picky eater. They're only eating white foods. That is the gut microorganisms. It may be parasites or viruses or bad bacteria that are saying, hey, we want those crunchy carbs, we want those chips, we want that sugar, and they will be the ones responsible for the picky eating.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it just, it's
Yeah.
like we've got these aliens inside of us guiding our brain what to do and what to eat. So when we shift the diet, when we offer the beneficial bacteria food they like to eat, which is sort of the colourful fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, then we start to increase the good bacteria population through slowly making changes in the diet.
Yeah.
The taste buds change.
Right.
Well, not the taste buds, but what the child wants to eat will change as the gut bacteria changes.
And that's really interesting because all of a sudden I feel like that everyone listening to that, if they've had such an aha moment like I have, it's almost like it's almost like I can forgive myself for the cravings that I've had because it's not me.
It's not you talking.
Not me talking, and it's not me saying, oh, I just really want some ice cream and some chocolate or something. It's actually then understanding that there's actually something in my gut that's driving that. It's not me being weak or slack or lazy or anything like that. It's actually whatever's going on in my gut.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And so for parents, it can be really hard to say no to your child when they're unhappy or throwing a tantrum. But we're either feeding our child for health or we're feeding the bad bacteria or parasites or organisms.
Yeah.
So when you're kind of faced with that image, do I want to feed my child or do I want to feed those gross things?
Yeah.
You're probably more likely to go, okay, let's feed the child. And let's just slowly change that over time when my nervous system is in a place where I feel like I can do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so if I came to you with eczema, for example, or topical steroid withdrawal, what would be your process? How would we work together?
We will start with the nervous system.
Okay.
So if you're at a place, so sometimes I ask about, would you like to do a food diary? Sometimes that can just feel too onerous as well. Too confronting or too onerous because it's another thing that I have to remember to do. So I wouldn't start there, but we start with the nervous system. So I would ask you, Megan, when you think about eczema, what comes up for you? What do you feel in your body? Is it a sensation like just the pit of my stomach is really heavy, or is it rage or anger or frustration? So we start there and then we work back to the origins of that.
Right. Okay. And I love that you go into that, where do you feel it in your body? Because I think that would give you so much information for the client. Because I'm assuming that you work with clients online as well as in person.
All online, actually.
Yeah, all online. There you go. Yeah. So that would give you, it's not like someone comes into your office and you kind of pick up intuitively if you sort of feel a few things. That where do you feel it in your body, I suspect just gives you instant ideas and recognition of what could be going on.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And it can be hard for people to feel into their body because sometimes we're very disconnected too. I was also very disconnected once upon a time, not that long ago. And so teaching them in between sessions also, if you're feeling something in your body, don't just ignore it and it's the push it down. We don't want to push it down. We just want to acknowledge it, and I give them some different strategies so that when that happens, if that happens in the next week where something comes up, they can actually just process it themselves. It's the unprocessed emotions or the unprocessed stress or trauma that is contributing to that inflammation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. And so I'd love to hear some of your client success stories. So are there a couple that really stand out for you that you would be willing to share with me and the audience?
Yeah, sure. I have two in mind. I wanted to pick some different conditions. I had a client who came to me with a chronic cough that he had had for nearly 30 years. Yes, so he would have a cough anytime he, like an uncontrollable, continuous cough anytime he went out in the cold.
Okay.
And also at least once or twice a year, he would get a virus, and then that would sort of set him off for 2 or 3 months with this cough.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew what his triggers were. There were also some food triggers that he had noticed. And we traced it back to, I am guided by the client, so wherever their subconscious takes me, we go there, back to when he had a hospital visit when he was about 7 with a pneumonia. We traced it back to that and cleared that. And then we also went further back 3 generations. On his mother's side, this is not where I thought it was going to go. And there were some beliefs that he had and patterns that weren't his, that belonged to a few generations back, and we cleared that. And he sent me a message the next day and said, "Oh, I'm feeling better. I haven't had a cough today." I'm like, great. He had actually moved from a very hot climate to a below zero, freezing, snowy climate before he hired me. So he was going out every day with this chronic cough because it had snowed and it was, sub-0 degrees.
Yeah.
And so he sends me an update every few weeks with walking in the snow, no cough. He can eat those foods again.
Wow.
And it was a really interesting process because that's not often my client sessions aren't where I think they're going to go. A really beautiful result for him.
Oh my gosh, he wouldn't know himself now.
Yeah, I mean, it's still the middle of winter there, so he's in, knee deep in snow and loving being able to go out.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I could imagine too, like his body would just be loving that, because if you're constantly coughing, I know if I've had a cough and, after a week, it's like, oh my gosh, everything hurts because you're coughing. I bet now his body's going, hallelujah.
My abs can have a rest. And then the second client had topical steroid withdrawal. So this is a condition where you use steroids for a period of time, and it's often not recognised in the medical system as an actual thing. But if you go onto any of the social medias and look on topical steroid withdrawal, you will see pictures of people, of images with flaking skin from head to toe.
Right.
Red raw, extremely painful, and it takes years to settle down if it does.
Mm-hmm.
So people have moved countries to other humid environments to try and literally heal from this.
Yeah.
But this one client came to me, so she had eczema, used steroids for many years, and then started to withdraw. And she reached out to me, and we had 4 sessions of the nervous system work and going back to clear the emotions from her childhood and her daughter's birth as well, which was traumatic for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And within 2 weeks, her skin was looking fantastic. I'd seen her smile for the first time on camera. I'd never seen her smile before. And by the 4th session, she said, "Oh, my skin's still a little bit red." And I looked at her and I said, "Oh, it's looking pretty good to me, but send me some photos so I can see the first photos to this week's photos." And no shedding, no flaky skin. She was going out to dinner. She was life-changing for her.
Yeah.
She'd forgotten in 4 weeks how bad her skin was.
Right.
She just, because we'd cleared the intensity of emotions and she was sleeping, she wasn't itching, she could eat what she always wanted to eat.
Yeah.
I had to send her photos and she said, I don't remember that. So that's another thing that can happen with clients is that because the energetics of it drop away, the stress drops away, and then they sort of don't remember as much. So I encourage taking photos for people's own sort of records.
Yeah, yeah.
And just an amazing change when she'd had eczema for probably 20, 25 years.
Wow. And it's almost like she just naturally just let the story go as well, because there was no story attached to that anymore. And it's almost like that work and that healing that you did, she also healed that very quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting you say that. Yeah, so her childhood was, we don't have to talk about it either. I
Yeah.
don't need to know what's going on, and
Yeah.
we don't relive. I don't make anybody go relive through that
Yeah.
trauma, because I think that can be quite re-traumatizing for
Yeah.
you.
Very triggering. Yeah.
But we talked about her childhood, which for her was really, really fearful. And we talked about that, and she said, "No, I didn't. No, I feel really grateful for my childhood." I was like, "Really?" Didn't seem like it at the time, but just those changes about maybe reframing things, it just
Mm.
changed. It changed her whole view on her childhood, and also just her relationship with her daughter, from what it was before working together to now. She actually had the energy and
Mm.
didn't have the fatigue and the not wanting to go out at all. That
Yeah.
just changed her relationship with her daughter as well, which is beautiful.
Wow, that's really amazing. I love that. I love that. So, can you believe that we actually only have a couple of minutes left?
I can make no, it's actually gone super fast.
I told you, I told you. So I'll ask you the same question that I love to ask all of my guests before we finish our conversation. So can you share with us, what is your favorite quote and why is it so important to you?
It is no mud, no lotus. And
Mm-hmm.
I love this quote. I never used to understand this quote, because why would you want things to be hard?
Mm.
Really? But I have learnt so much through having Ben, who had eczema, allergies, and asthma. He doesn't have eczema anymore. He doesn't have asthma anymore. And his allergies have gone from about 15 to 2. So things happen for a reason, but the challenges are there to help us grow and evolve into something different. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And knowing you as well, I think that quote really sums you up as well, because I know that, the time that we've known each other, when something has come up and it has been a challenge, you've looked at it as a growth opportunity
Mm,
as opposed to it being the end of the world and a disaster. So I think that quote definitely sums you up. So thank you.
thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I have no doubt that our audience will be very grateful for the time that you've shared with us, and also all of the things that you've shared with us as well. I've had, I don't know, 3 or 4 aha moments, I think I've said, and I'm sure I'm sure everybody that watches this will as well. So just thank you for being really generous with your time and what you've shared with us today.
My pleasure, Megan. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And I also want to thank all of our amazing and dedicated audience, our supporters and our sponsors. And then I hope that you all have an amazing weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Megan. Bye, everyone.